Hello everyone, I thought I would read you guys the story of Queen Esther so it can really get you into what we're learning about this week. Let's go. So, the Book of Esther. We know all about that, don't we? Ahasuerus, king of the Persian Empire. He was vain, foolish and hot-tempered, which means that he got angry very quickly. He liked to show off his riches at huge parties, where guests drank from golden goblets and ate from silver bowls. The business of running the empire was left to the king's advisors. Ahasuerus was too busy drinking and eating to bother with thinking. It was at one of his parties that the king ordered his wife, the beautiful Queen Vashti, to dance. The queen said no. Ahasuerus was furious. "How dare you disobey me? Get rid of her." And his advisors... get rid of her, said his advisors. Sorry. And the very next day, Queen Vashti was banished. Oh dear. Days, weeks, months went by. Ahasuerus grew lonely and very bad-tempered. He missed Queen Vashti. "He will punish us for what has happened to the queen," said one of his advisors. "He might even hang us," said another. "But not if we find him a new queen who is even more beautiful than Vashti," said a third. The search began. Beautiful young women arrived in the palace from all over the temple. So lots of these ladies who wanted to be his wife. Now, there was in the city of Shushan, not far from the palace, a beautiful young woman named Esther. She lived with her cousin Mordecai, and her parents had died when she was a baby. Esther and Mordecai lived in Persia. But they were not Persian, they were Jewish. Many years before they were born, their ancestors had been taken prisoner by the king of Persia and brought to his country. By the time Ahasuerus became king, the Jews were no longer prisoners. They spoke Persian and dressed like their Persian neighbours. They lived by the laws of their new land. They bought and sold in the market. They even served the king's army. But in their homes, they practice like Jewish people. And you see, they're having Shabbat. When the search for a new queen was announced, Mordecai tried to hide Esther from the king's men, for everyone knew what had happened to the last queen. But Esther's beauty was known throughout the city. One day, soldiers came to the door, and Esther was taken to the palace. "Don't tell anyone you're Jewish," Mordecai whispered before she left. "For it is said that there are many in the court who would harm Jews." It's not very nice, is it? Inside the palace walls, Esther lived in a special house with other young women. For 1 year, they were massaged with fragrant oils and sprinkled with exotic perfumes. Their hair was brushed, their nails were clipped, their lips were painted, their cheeks were blushed. All this was to prepare them to meet the king. The young women spoke many languages. There were many religions, and they were all beautiful in their own way. Esther enjoyed meeting women from many different parts of the empire, but she missed Mordecai, for she was not allowed to leave the palace grounds, and he was not allowed to enter. Each day, Mordecai walked past the women's courtyard and looked inside so that he would know how his cousin was doing. One by one, day after day, the women were brought to the king, and one by one, he rejected them all. Finally, it was Esther's turn. Though she was offered robes that sparkled with gold and necklaces that radiated with diamonds, Esther chose to wear a simple white dress. When she entered the king's chamber, it was her natural beauty that sparkled and radiated. The king was overwhelmed. He placed the royal crown on her head and proclaimed her Queen Esther. There she goes, she's the queen. Mordecai missed his cousin very much. He spent hours sitting near the gateway to the palace, where the servants of the king and the queen would gather and gossip. There he would listen for news about Esther. One day, Mordecai overheard 2 servants plotting to kill the king. He immediately sent a message to Esther, and Esther told the king. The servants were banished from the kingdom. At just about the same time, a man named Haman, boo, was made Prime Minister of Persia. Since I'm the Prime Minister, Haman told the king, you must order everyone to bow down before me. The king, of course, was a bit silly and did what he was told. Wherever Haman went, the people bowed down. But Mordecai said no. I'm a Jew, said Mordecai, and Jews do not bow down to human beings. Whenever Haman walked through the palace gate, he saw Mordecai standing whilst everyone else bowed. He insults me, thought Haman. I will get rid of him. I'll have him banished. And I will have all the Jews in the land banished too. All of them. That night, Haman chose the day that he was going to banish them. And it was 12 months from that moment. The next morning, the king was playing cards when Haman arrived. Sire, said Haman, there are certain people scattered throughout the empire whose ways are different from the rest of the people, and they do not follow our laws. You must tell them that they will be banished. I've chosen the day already that they can be banished, king. The king said, oh, just do whatever you like, doesn't matter. And he went back to playing his game. Because of the evil mind of Haman, boo, and the empty mind of the king, all of the people in Persia were about to be banished. The king is not realising what he's doing. He's also not realising his wife is actually Jewish, Queen Esther. When the Jews throughout the empire heard the news, they wept and wailed and mourned. Queen Esther, sheltered inside the palace walls, never even heard about this until Mordecai sent her a message. You must plead with the king to save your people, Esther. You must. Esther trembled. She was so scared. When she heard what Mordecai was asking, no one, not even the queen, was allowed to go to the king unless he called for her. Esther sent a message back to Mordecai. Look, Esther's looking very worried. Esther sent a message back to Mordecai. I'm afraid, she said. I have not even seen the king for 30 days. Mordecai says, you can't think about yourself, he responded. It's possible that you have been put on the throne to make sure you save all the Jewish people. You have to save us. For 3 days, Esther fasted, which meant that she didn't eat or drink, and all the Jews of Shushan fasted and prayed with her. On the 3rd day, she walked towards the king's courtyard, and she thought to herself, well, if the king gets rid of me, he gets rid of me. I have to try and save the Jewish people. There was a hush when she walked in. The king looked at Queen Esther. He saw another queen defying his rules. He was not happy. What is it you wish, Queen Esther? He asked. King, please can we have a really big party? And could Haman come too? Boo. The king turned to his servants. See that Haman? Boo. Makes himself ready, he ordered. So tell Haman to get ready for the party. Esther and her guests wined and dined in elegance. When the last dessert was eaten, the king asks again, what is it you wish, Esther? Look, there he is. There's Haman. What is it you wish, Esther? Whatever it is, you shall have it. It will come true. Esther began to speak, but the words couldn't come out. For now, she said, I only ask that you and Haman come back tomorrow again for another party. Then I will tell you what you wish for. She has a little plan, doesn't she? Haman, boo, left the banquet, all puffed up with his own importance. When he stepped out to the gate, he saw Mordecai again not bowing down to him. Haman got very angry. When he arrived home, he said to his wife, I cannot be happy as long as I'm living in the same place as Mordecai. His wife said, well, then get rid of Mordecai. You're the prime minister. You can do that. Haman was very happy with her suggestion. He decided that he was going to get rid of Mordecai. That night, whilst Haman was planning to get rid of Mordecai, King Ahasuerus was not able to sleep. He called for his servants to read to him from the royal diary. And, by chance, the servant read about the man named Mordecai who had saved the king's life. What has been done to make that man, Mordecai, feel good about himself? Because he needs a big present. And the servant says, well, you haven't done anything. Then the king said, well, we have to do something. We have to make him a big thank you. That very night was the second party. Once again, the dessert was finished. The king asked Queen Esther what it was that she wanted. I ask that you save my life and save the lives of my people, said the queen. It's been ordered that all the Jews in the land are going to be banished. Who has ordered such things? Asked the king. Who is this enemy of our people? Our enemy is Haman. Boo! The king jumped in rage. He couldn't believe it. Within hours, Haman was banished. Haman, boo, said the king. What should be done to someone who I really want to thank? Now, Haman, boo, was thinking that it was himself that the king was talking about, and smiled and said, dress him in the king's clothes, sit him on the king's horse, and let the most noble prince in the land lead him through the streets, calling out, this is what is done to a man who is amazing. Oh dear, Haman's going to have a bit of a shock now. Excellent, said the king. Now go and dress the man named Mordecai. Bring him to my house and lead him through the city. Haman couldn't believe it. He could not believe that the king thought that Mordecai was so amazing. Haman did not like Mordecai at all. Everyone in Shushan was witness to Mordecai's honour and Haman looking very silly. That very night was the second party. Once again, the dessert was finished. The king asked Queen Esther what it was that she wanted. I ask that you save my life and save the lives of my people, said the queen. It's been ordered that all the Jews in the land are going to be banished. Who has ordered such things? Asked the king. Who is this enemy of our people? Our enemy is Haman. Boo! The king jumped in rage. He couldn't believe it. Within hours, Haman was banished. And the Jewish people were saved. Woohoo! Jews throughout Persia rejoiced and celebrated. Mordecai became the prime minister. One of his first orders was that the Jews everywhere, every year, celebrate the holiday of Purim on the 14th and 15th of Adar, the days when the sorrow, the sadness turned into happiness. As for King Ahasuerus, he continued to be vain and foolish and hot-tempered. And he was still too busy drinking and eating to think about his kingdom. But for now, instead of Haman's boo evil, it was the wisdom of Mordecai and his cousin Esther that ruled the Persian Empire. And that's the end of our story. So I hope you enjoyed that story. It's a really important story during Purim. It can be a little bit tricky to follow, but I hope this video has helped you to understand it a little bit more.